Part 2, Advanced Individual Training, AIT, Fort Lee, Virginia. The flight to Virginia was long and uneventful. I arrived at the airport with all my military gear ready. I had a few civilian outfits, but not many, as I wasn't sure that what would be allowed. At the airport, they had a military liaison to help with transportation to base. I had my orders in hand and was escorted to a waiting bus to take me on post. I arrived and I was escorted into a big theater again. Here, I would have to wait with the rest of the soldiers preparing for this next phase. What was different now was there were female soldiers here. It sounded like we wouldn't be as separated as before. This is when I saw him, the biggest and meanest looking drill sergeant I had ever seen. He bellowed, "Drill sergeant on the floor!" And we were on our feet at attention. He strode down the aisles, assessing us. His name was Drill Sergeant Wilson, but to many, he was just known as the Bull. And I'm not making this shit up. I could see this was not a man to be trifled with. We were escorted to our new barracks. It was the second floor, last set of double doors in the building. We were in a big bay again. However, this time, the way they were laid out, we had more space to ourselves. The wall lockers were lined up against each other so that we had a little area between the bunk area and the wall lockers, with wall lockers up against the beds. It would make it a little bit quieter for sure. We also had windows that covered one whole wall. I would be able to see out even though it was just another building in the distance. I found a bunk and started unpacking. PT in the morning would be at 6 a.m., which was much better, and of course, Bay Guard duty started tonight. But luckily, a few soldiers didn't follow orders and were chosen for the first night. This is where I would spend the next 10 weeks of my life. More rules. Hi, family. Sorry if this letter is a little messy. I am writing in the dark right now. I am on Bay Guard duty, which is a lot like Fire Guard duty in basic, except you are not supposed to write letters or do anything. But right now I'm breaking that rule. The other difference is that it is only one person at a time. Thus, it is very hard to stay awake, and I have to write letters to keep me occupied. I don't know how they expect us to sit in the dark in the middle of the night and stay awake. It is just not possible unless we have something to do. The rules in AIT were a little different than basic. We had a few more freedoms, but we had to earn them. To start, it was back to basic training rules, and we had to give up all of our civilian clothes and items. Damn. It was a whole new group of soldiers to get to know. We did get to keep our music, though, which was huge. Now, some soldiers would play music in the barracks while we were working, or we could listen to the Walkman cassette players when we weren't on duty. However, the Bay Guard duty was just stupid. I mean, sitting there in the dark at 3 a.m., how are you supposed to stay awake or alert? It was pretty hard to write in complete darkness, but I learned how during those 10 weeks. The Bull. Hi, family. I hope everything is going well at home. Here in AIT, things are going well, except of course, I got stuck with another drill sergeant who wants to be the best. What this means is constant cleaning to no avail. He is never satisfied. In fact, I almost bet for the next 10 weeks he will not be satisfied. We are in phase 4 right now, and to leave this phase, we must be able to clean the barracks to his standards. Anyway, if or when we reach phase 5, we get our civilian clothes back and we can go off post and don't have to be back until Sunday at 6 p.m. I am glad though because it'll save me more money to stay on post. Oh, by the way, all squad leaders were fired today. I, of course, am very relieved as this means less work for me and no responsibility. From moment one, I was appointed squad leader. While being a private first-class E3 paid a little more, it was clearly not an advantage when it came to leading people. As usual, there were the slackers and the complainers to deal with, and of course, we failed the first week and didn't meet standards, and I was out. Yay for me! So let's talk some more about my drill sergeant, the Bull. First of all, I loved his car. It was a 1987 Thunderbird, big and fast. It turns out that I had a Thunderbird just like it years later, and I always remembered the fact that he had one, and we watched him leave in it every day. The Bull was mean, but he was fair. If we got the work done, we were done. The problem was we couldn't meet his standards. He made me laugh as soon as he stood there in front of the formation, listening to the first sergeant give us orders for the day. When there was something funny, he would lean his head back and cock it toward us with a grin, revealing his gold tooth shining in the sunlight. Just like Drill Sergeant Smith from Basic, when we saw the gold, it usually meant lots of pain. The bull had his own unique styles of torturing us with different exercises and things. The worst part was that we knew that some of the other platoons in the building were free to dress in civilian clothes or even leave campus while we were stuck cleaning. At least in Basic, everyone was miserable. At times, we could hear the other soldiers outside playing baseball, playing basketball, or just talking, which is mass punishment at its best. Going back to class. Dear family, there are really only two things hard about being here, and those are 3 to 4 mile runs in the morning and trying my best to stay awake in class. The rest of this place is very easy. The days are moving by fast, and that makes me very happy. Well, the time has come to start cleaning the barracks, so bye for now. Love, Mike. For the most part, I enjoyed learning about all the new tools and techniques of being a petroleum supply specialist. With the instructors and all of the students in the same military occupational specialty, MOS, it allowed us to bond. 77 Foxtrots are special people. We provide the lifeblood to the military, fuel. We can serve many purposes, from fueling vehicles in field, to fueling helicopters, to running a mobile fueling unit, to running a big fuel field way behind enemy lines. I enjoyed being outside the most, even when it was cold. When we were in the classroom, it was boring. Although it was fun to see students get punished when they fell asleep, the problem was that I was one of those people who couldn't stay awake. There were multiple reasons for this. I think the main one was that the trailers we had class in were hot. I mean excessively hot. We had worn all of these warm clothes because of the snow and rain in Virginia in the winter, but inside I just wanted to take them all off. The second problem was that we tended to go over things multiple times. They would repeat so much, and usually I had it the first time. The main thing I learned from all this is that I was ready. I was ready when the time came back to finish my service to the military and go back to school, sit in classes, and ace them. Something had changed in me. I had learned how to do this. I was disciplined, responsible, and pretty damn intelligent. I didn't believe any of this before I went in the Army. Basic had brought it out in me. To pass the class, it was mostly multiple choice tests, although we did have some hands-on tests out in the field as well. The multiple choice tests were easy, frankly too easy, so at times I would overthink the question. The sergeants teaching the class tried to keep it interesting, but more and more I just wanted to get to my permanent unit and get started. 90 degrees, let's go, Private! I only got into trouble in the classroom once, and I sort of brought it on myself. As time went by in classes, the teachers got a little more relaxed and would not be so formal. Well, one day I did get a little cocky and spoke out of turn, arguing my point a little too much. Hey, I didn't want to miss a point on the test. Anyway, I went too far and paid the price. They told me to grab the trash can, it was metal of course, and hold it straight out in front of me, holding it with my arms at a 90-degree angle to my body. While this might seem easy at first, even something light will get heavy after a while, and you won't be able to hold it up for too long. Try it sometime if you don't believe me. It brought back memories of the rubber M16 in Basic, but honestly, I knew they weren't too mad at me. I was one of the best students, being willing to ask questions and answer questions whenever needed. Not so much a teacher's pet, but just willing to be an active learner. After about 15 minutes, I was released back to my seat. It was sort of fun anyway to get some exercise, and it woke me up. Smoke 'em if you got 'em. The first thing I noticed right away outside of Basic was how many soldiers smoked. When we were in advanced training, you were allowed to smoke in certain designated areas. When we were on any break, there was always the call for, smoke 'em if you got 'em. This meant about a 10 to 15 minute break. I would usually just sit on the bleachers, but sometimes hang out with the smokers. Their discussions were lively, and they were always asking me if I wanted to smoke. In training, I always declined. I didn't really want to become a smoker. Not only was it an expensive habit, but also most of them coughed on a regular basis. What causes people to choose a habit they know will probably kill them? I mean, cigarettes have a warning label right on the side. It probably takes a million research studies to get the government to force these warning labels to appear. So, what could be the reason? The only thing I can think of that it makes you part of a group. The group in the corner, always isolated from everyone else. Or maybe they consider themselves the in group. Whatever. But for now, I wasn't doing it. Firefighting, or it is spacesuit time. Because we were working in fuel for our jobs, it was critical we knew how to fight a fire. We learned all about fire extinguishers and what they do. We knew the exciting day was coming. It was a day when we would get to fight a fire for fun. It was a crazy day to do it. It had been snowing on and off all day, but not really sticking, just melting. Anyway, after lunch, we marched out to the pit. The pit was just a big, muddy area with a huge hole in the middle. This is where the fire would be. We suited up and prepared to battle the fire one at a time. The suit was a grayish silver and had a huge helmet, just like a spacesuit. The gloves were so massive, I could hardly see my hands through the small mask. With the big hose in hand, we moved it to spray on the fire. Fighting the fire was fun, but more fun was watching the smaller soldiers, especially some of the female soldiers, trying to control the hose. It was moving, and it was heavy. Plus, with the spacesuit and boots, it was just so awkward to control. We had a great laugh, and we put the fire out. So, success. Female soldiers. I never expected to be in training with women. While we were separated by floor and platoon, the female soldiers were there with us in classes, and they were there with us in the evenings in the rec room. This was both good and bad. I quickly learned that some female soldiers know how to play the guys to get what they want. There were clearly more men than women, so they pretty much had their pick of the litter. This usually meant that they could ask guys for just about anything, and one of them would jump up at the chance. I probably got sucked in a number of times as well, even though I knew the game. I did have some female soldiers who I really enjoyed spending time with, though. One of them was Private Stacy. Now, Stacy was not attractive to me. She had big military glasses, and her skin was a bit rough, but I liked her as a person. Stacy was black as well, but as I've said before, this didn't bother me at all. Actually, I was growing more and more to appreciate the culture. Coming from a very white community, I really didn't connect with much of my own culture, just football on Sundays and being an American. We were in the same class, and I saw her most days outside or in the rec room. I think she might have had a little crush on me, but I just made sure we stayed friends. We enjoyed each other's company, just talking about where we were from and what we would do when we got back. I swear the thing I liked most about the military was the downtime. Shooting the shit, as we called it, whether it be playing some pool in the rec room, watching television, or just sitting outside watching the sunset over the rows of white, nondescript military housing barracks. Then there was Private June. I will never forget June. She was a beautiful black woman. It didn't matter that she was in those baggy BDUs. It was obvious that she had a shapely body. She wasn't skinny by any means, but I didn't really like sticks. The best part about her was her face. She had the most gorgeous black eyes, and when she blinked, just about every guy came running. She would smile, and I couldn't help but feel warm inside. She had a beautiful southern accent, and when she spoke, I couldn't help but listen and follow. However, she worked all this to her advantage. She would always find ways out of just about every bad duty. If it wasn't cleaning and her group was assigned to it, she would just go over and chat with the training sergeants. By flirting with the sergeants a little, they wouldn't notice the fact that she wasn't cleaning with us at all. June was always nice to me, and we had a great competition as well, because she was also very smart. Brains and beauty, what a killer. We battled all the way through AAT and into other training, fighting for that top spot. I probably would have asked her out, but she made it pretty clear she had a steady boyfriend waiting for her at home. Were a few other women in our training classes as well, but I never found much interest in them. There was one more lady who I sort of fell for in the last few weeks of training. Her name was Letitia. Letitia was a petite young black woman with a great smile and a quiet demeanor. She was pregnant and was getting a medical discharge. Because of this, she wasn't in a training cycle, and she mostly just sat out in the front of the barracks. I would talk to her a lot about everything. I knew there wasn't much of a chance with her, and what would I be thinking getting involved with a pregnant woman? I don't know what it is, but in the military, things are different than the outside world. In the military, you are alone with your thoughts a lot. Plus, being in training, you are kind of in this weird holding position. You are still a private and do not have the rights you would have in regular duty. You can't really go anywhere, and you are just waiting. Plus, it is so lonely at times being away from family and not having your lifelong friends around to really share your feelings with. Letitia was someone who didn't mind talking and sharing. She helped me to continue thinking about my path in life and the directions I was going, and she was cute as a button. Now I'm in the Marines? Say what? Dear family, well, I have to write in the dark on Bagard, but I thought I would give you a brief summary of what we've been doing at the training center. For one thing, we have a Marine sergeant for an instructor. He is very nice, and he has taught our class a lot of new drill and ceremony movements we hadn't learned in basic. It is interesting because going into the military, there seemed to be a lot of anger and competitiveness between the branches of the military. In fact, I remember one cadence where we blatantly made fun of the different branches, like calling the Marines jarheads, and it ends with the Army being the best. There were probably similar songs in each branch. Anyway, our Marine sergeant instructor called cadence differently than our Army counterparts. It was hard at first to believe he was saying left and right. It was more like left, right. But he also liked to show us different maneuvers like half left march, where we would all turn at a 45-degree angle and keep marching. This was fun to try, and the nice thing is when we messed up, it was generally wasn't in the dirt punishment. However, there were times when we were fooling around when this happened. It was just a different atmosphere. He was here to train us on a field of duty, not infantry. I know this wouldn't have worked in basic. Many of the privates needed that tough love to become soldiers. But now we were soldiers just without training yet. Fort Ord, California? Are you serious? Is this some sort of a gift from heaven? Mom, I was wondering if you could send me a box with a few things in it. I would like the box so I don't have to carry that much to Fort Dix and can send what I don't need back in the same box. The things I need in locations are these gray dress shorts, San Francisco muscle shirt, and white volleyball tournament shirt. Don't worry if you can't find them all, but they should be in my drawers or hanging up. When I receive the box, I will return it with some other stuff I don't need right now. Also, one of my good friends here has never seen mountains, so if you could have a picture of the Flatirons I could show him, please send that too. Also, it would make me happy if every time I look at it, I need these clothes just in case I can't go home before California. You know, I have to look good in California. About halfway through AIT, we were told that the permanent assignments were coming out soon. They would be posted on the board in the rec room. From then on, I checked every day. The previous class still had their lists up there. I found out later that I wasn't going to get an overseas assignment because of my short enlistment. There were lots of different posts listed on the older sheets. The one that scared me the most was Fort Drum. It was in upstate New York, and it was home of the 10th Mountain Division. The only thing I knew about this duty was lots of snow. I hated snow. What I liked was beaches. I always wanted to live near the beach. No chance they would let me choose my duty assignment, but then it was my time, and my duty list was posted. PFC Travis, Fort Ord, California. And there were only 2 of us from my unit going there. Wow, California. It was like a dream come true. But there was something else next to it. Heavy Vehicle Drivers Training, Fort Dix, New Jersey. What was this? I thought I was done in 3 weeks of training. I was headed to my permanent duty soon. I didn't know much about Fort Ord, but I was hoping to find out soon. I had no information, but California was a hell of a lot better than snow. I would just have to ask the sergeants for more information. Hoses, clamps, valves, and more hoses. Dear family, this week and the last week we learned about the FSSP Fuel Supply System Point, which is a temporary receiving and refueling station that would be set up near the front lines in a wartime situation. This system is what I would probably be setting up in the field at Fort Ord. It was kind of fun and I received 100% on the tests. Currently I have a 98.6% in the class. Not bad, huh? If I continue, I will achieve an honor graduate award, which attaches to my diploma. My other 2 instructors are nice, also. Although I am not having the best time here at Fort Lee, it is interesting and I'm gaining some knowledge that I would probably wouldn't have gained otherwise. As I described above, This was an interesting training where we set up this temporary fuel supply point for many different types of vehicles and even a helicopter. It involved moving around a bunch of hoses, clamps, and valves, ensuring that all the system would successfully take fuel from one point to a different refueling stations. Luckily, it was a team assignment, and there were a few of us who got it and could make sure that everything was set up correctly and we had a working system. We spent many hours setting up the system, then bringing the equipment all the way back to the front and then setting it up again. It got kind of tedious after the 20th time, but we got it. More and more, I am just ready to go to my permanent unit. Thank you to all. Dear Mom and Dad, here is a check for $20. Please use this to go out to dinner. This is my way of showing you my appreciation for all that you have done for me while I'm away. I hope you have fun, but not too much fun. By the way, as usual, I need another favor. I really enjoyed the map, but could you also send me a map of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and route to New York? I would really appreciate it. I know it won't be I know it won't be a very expensive meal, but at least it's something. I love you both, Mike. It was almost impossible to thank everyone for all they did for me during my time in training. From cards to the small gift boxes, family and friends were willing to help when I needed it. However, my parents were the ones who did the most. My mom made cookies all the time for me and my fellow soldiers, and they took care of so many of the checking account issues that I couldn't handle while being so far away. I found this letter in the stack, and it made me happy that I had remembered at least once to say thank you. Success! Hi, family. Class is kind of slow now. We are studying tank maintenance. I thought because of Friday KP, I would be way behind, but as it turned out, I came in today, and in about 5 minutes, I was already understanding more than half the class. I was very honored today because the staff sergeant told each side to pick the smartest person for the problem, and the winning side would not have to clean up the room at the end of the day. Well, anyway, our whole side was screaming, "Travis, Travis, Travis!" Needless to say, I was very flattered. Anyway, we won and didn't have to clean. Every day at the end of class, we had to pack up everything and make sure the room was clean. This meant cleaning the boards, taking out the trash, and sweeping the floors. We had so many other duties back at the barracks. It was nice when we weren't the ones that had to clean the classroom as well. Something had changed in me in just 5 months in military. I had found confidence in my academic abilities. I am not sure what it was, but the Army had brought out something inside of me that was hidden. I had gone through the whole school system, but I hadn't learned about myself as a learner. All I knew how to do was just hope for the best. But now I could see the future, a future where I was successful in school, but also where I could predict the questions that would be asked on a test. This made studying pretty easy. So when I was picked by the group to be the one to solve the problem on the board, I was ready. It was a tough problem that involved using some math to determine the amount of fuel left in the tank. I took a minute to make sure I had the right answer and then guessed it. I was right. Our side of the room got an extra 15 minutes outside while the other side did the cleaning for the evening. Traveling by bus. Ass to ass, face the glass. You know the deal. In AIT, the days pretty much were the same. We would get up and go for PT, clean the barracks, then form up for breakfast. After breakfast, we would form up again to go to training. The training was on the other side of the post, so we had to take buses. The Army, in its infinite wisdom, couldn't afford more than 2 buses for the whole platoon, I guess. So there was one for males and one for females. Since there were a lot less females, they always got seats. For the males, they would try to crowd as many soldiers on as possible. It was so lucky when you were the first squad to go on the bus because you knew you were going to get a seat. Sometimes the order for getting on the bus was random. Other times it was based on how well we did in our calling cadence or some quick marching maneuvers, just like the chow line from basic. If you didn't make it on first, then you would be standing the whole way. To pack the most in, we would stand up and literally face the outside windows, while your butt would be up against another soldier's butt behind you. If we didn't pack in shoulder to shoulder, back to back, we wouldn't all fit in. When soldiers didn't push in far enough, the bull would come on the bus and yell, "Ass to ass, face the glass! You know the deal, soldiers!" Privates would gripe and complain, then comply, and we would all fit. After the first few trips to class, the bull didn't need to scold us anymore, and we would scold each other while getting on the bus. But if you could get a window seat, that was amazing, like having first class on a plane. You could doze off just a little on the trip there or back. Recreation room. The recreation room was on the bottom floor of the barracks and was an area where all the soldiers could hang out during off times. Mostly, it was pretty crowded on weekends and sometimes on weekday evenings. It had a free pool table that leaned back to one side. There was also a small television to watch shows or VCR movies. There was only one couch, so it wasn't too comfortable unless you got down there early for one of those seats. The recreation room was a great reward that could be taken away. Barracks not clean, you lose the rec center privileges. Talk back, lose privileges. Fail a surprise inspection and lose privileges. It was nice to be in a place where that was the most times free of drill sergeants, but there wasn't much to do. This is where I first learned to play cards, though. I played a lot of card and board games as a kid growing up, in a time when 5 channels on a black and white television and no internet. But I had never learned much about Trump, so the game of spades was new to me, and frankly, I loved playing. It was especially fun with my black friends. They are so vocal and so obnoxious when they play, and it's great. They play with so much intimidation and cunning. I learned a lot from them. One of my favorite lines was when you play, say, a queen of spades to lead, and you challenge the other team to come back with a higher trump or lose the trick. Many times you would slap the card down, shaking the whole table, and command, "Come high or stay the fuck at home." It was a great way to challenge them, and sometimes they fold under the pressure, revealing in their face that they don't have a spade high enough to challenge. Or when someone challenges you and they literally slam the ace of spades on top, shaking cards everywhere to win the trick and take control. I had a few partners in the barracks who I played with, and we could almost read each other's minds. This helped the tedious hours go by when there was nothing else to do. Weather. Dear family, the weather here lately has been garbage. Rain and cold. I am kind of getting sick of it. I suppose Dick's will be even worse. Someday I hope I warm up. Being in training and even in my permanent unit, I never felt at home. I never had control of my heat or cold. I was always dependent on the Army. They kept us fed, clothed, and decided the temperature in the rooms. We were given thin sheets and only that green, scratchy blanket for warmth. The winter of 1989 in Virginia was not a nice one. We had a lot of cold and rain. It seemed every day we would wake up to rain. Training in the rain can be fun at times, but not when it's just above freezing temperatures. Most times we all just wanted to go back to bed and sleep. But that is not an option when you are sitting in a warm classroom trying to learn and stay awake. And when I was back in the barracks, I was lucky if I got a hot shower. Most times it was just lukewarm. I don't think I thawed out completely until May. Contemplation. Dear family, I have been reading like crazy this weekend. I finished The Black Ice. Also, Heidi sent me 2 books, The Little Prince and Illusions by Richard Bach. I read both of them. Very interesting. I would like to hear your reaction to Illusions. I found it very enlightening, and I even copied a few of the sayings for my wall locker. I don't know if you knew this, but while I was on my last leave, we spent a lot of time just sitting and discussing current events and other issues. She is heavy into animal rights, and lately I've read a lot about it on the subject myself. At this point, I'm not sure how I would stand on the issue. Maybe St. Thomas has some views. Let me know. By animal rights, I am talking about inbreeding them for food and testing different drugs on them. A lot of it is pretty horrifying. I have been maintaining an open mind to all of that, and at this point, I am not sure where I stand. Time, there was much of it, and nothing to do. You could only polish your boots so much and buff the floors so many times. I took to reading a lot. I was a terrible reader as a young child. I just didn't find much joy in it, and I was very slow. It wasn't until 9th grade when I finished watching Roots on PBS that I took on the challenge. Roots by Alex Haley was over 900 pages. The largest book I had ever read was probably 150 pages, and not by choice. I started reading it and I struggled, but I read it on the school bus, at school, and any free moment I had. It took me over a month, but when I had finished that book, I was a better reader. From then on, it had been nonstop reading of books whenever I had the chance. In the Army, books are sort of like gold. You share them with others and collect them where you can. I had been reading spy novels and Tom Clancy books when my friend Heidi sent me Illusions. This book literally changed my life overnight. I was raised very Catholic, long hours at church, church study groups, and eventually Catholic school for 5 years. There was something I never really understood, and that was faith, a blind belief in something you don't know is true. I struggled with this all through my life, and while I have come to see the benefits of organized religion and getting people together to help others, religions can also have a negative effect as well, forcing others to believe in certain things detrimental to all society and even encouraging them to take up arms against those who are not part of a religion. But there was something different about Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. It wasn't a religious book, so to speak. It was more about not being afraid of taking charge of your life and finding purpose behind it. Some of the quotes are truly life changing, like this one: argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they're yours. This quote has become my driving force in life, helping me to proceed down the long journey with no reservations and certainly not with the words I can't. When Heidi gave me those books, I didn't know that they would do so much for me. Heidi was the first of many people to come into my life journey at just the right time and lead me down the course that would keep me on the right path.